Imagine being able to lay on your bed and make $50,000 a month. So, according to this article, this girl made over $50,000 a month without leaving her bedroom. So, let's get right into the story. So, a woman who hit rock bottom was able to rebuild her life and start an exciting new career as an online artist, earning an impressive $53,300 a month from her bedroom. When her marriage broke down and her dog died within the same fortnight, Michaela Morgan was distraught and at one point couldn't get out of bed. Speaking to Wales Online in 2020, she said, "We separated last year, and within 2 weeks of that, my dog, Dougie, died. He was only 3 years old and had been battling cancer." Oh, that's brutal to hear. Honestly, that's horrible. I was on the floor at that point, just devastated. I spent 3 weeks in bed, she recalled. I just felt completely lost and without hope, and hopelessness is the worst feeling in the world. It was a truly awful time, but now I'm able to do something that makes me feel proud every day. Devastated by the double blow of tragic events, Michaela, who married over 7 years ago, stopped leaving the house and began worrying loved ones. Turning to books in her time of need, Michaela read up on business, self help, and digital art, discovering the fascinating process of bringing artwork to life through a computer. The Wales native had always been artistic but had never sold a single piece of artwork. She said, "I had always wanted to sell my art, oil paintings, portraits, that kind of thing. I would do them for people I knew and for family members, but I never got anywhere with it in terms of starting up a business because I kept having to restart over and over again. By this point, I had started painting as much as possible, but then realized that it was going to be really difficult to get my work printed. The initial cost of setting up as a business was a few £1,000s for software and equipment like an iPad Pro. Because I kept reading so much about digital art, I decided to give it a shot and got myself the equipment I needed to start. To be honest, it was one of the most scary things I've ever done, but you got to trust yourself sometimes and go for it. Once I got the equipment, I found that luckily I took to it like a duck to water. So her pieces focus on iconic brands like Prada, Chanel, and Christian Dior. I think that's how you pronounce it. She read up digital art, learning the process of bringing her artwork to life. So during the coronavirus lockdown, Michaela set her business up from the comfort of her own bedroom and was soon making an impressive turnover. Between the end of April and the end of July last year, Michaela sold 117,000 euros worth of orders through her business, Mimo Arts. So her Instagram page also boasts 27,000 more followers gained in that time. Michaela's contemporary art struck a chord with people and has quickly gained a cult following online. Her designs wouldn't look out of place in a trendy boutique or fashion studio, as many pieces focus on iconic brands like Prada, Chanel, and Christian Dior. It's really taken off. A company from Dubai have got in touch and asked me to create a design based around their perfume brand, and I have a partnership with an American company which enables me to sell over there and elsewhere in the world, she said. This time last year, I wasn't really aware of digital art. I look back and think of all the time I spent wondering what to do with myself. I could have done this 10 years ago. It was just something I saw one day when someone said you can make a business for yourself from home and get another company to ship the items for you. Though Michaela is now enjoying the lucrative success of her art, she warns that her job still requires lots of hard work. It's not something that everyone can do, I don't think. I do work very hard. I would say over the last few months I've been working about 12 hours a day most days a week. It obviously requires more work in the beginning as well because at that stage you're not quite there. At the moment, I have so many ideas that I seem to be working all the time. I think that the coronavirus lockdown actually helped me because people have been at home looking at their homes and wanting to make changes or add pieces to them. And also being in lockdown kind of forced me to work all the time as there was nothing else to do. I would love it if anyone took inspiration from what happened to me. I don't mean specifically with art. I mean in anything that they just haven't done yet. Anyone can do what they put their minds to. It's all out there. You just got to do it. And here's the thing, like I think this is actually a pretty amazing thing. And like New York Post has like a thing called like, top notch so next. I thought this was a pretty good article because it kind of goes to show that even if you're facing like the hardest experience in your life, that perhaps you could turn that around and, you know, make lemonade out of the lemons that were squeezed, basically, right? Kind of like looking at, the glass half full kind of situations. Like, hey, my life might be really crappy right now, but who knows? Maybe I will find a path that in the next few years, maybe I'll be doing very well for myself. Maybe I'll have a better life for myself. Maybe, I'll have people around me that I care about and that care about me, you know? It's just something to really think about. Like, I think that's like the most important thing about this story. Not just the fact that she's able to make a lot of money online, but that she ended up turning a basically her lowest point in her life to now one of the greatest moments in her life because now she's basically doing something to her that is awesome, right? Like, I think that's a pretty cool thing to see and basically read about, right? Because a lot of people get really mentally destroyed and they basically, like she said, like her comment about hopelessness is the worst feeling ever. And honestly, that makes perfect sense, right? Because if you feel like there is literally zero hope in life, that leads people going down a very dark path very quickly to where they no longer have a life after that, right? So that's something to really think about, If you are, stumbling upon this episode sometime in the future, if you are dealing with a really dark moment in your life, understand that time goes on, and because time goes on and life keeps moving, you might be able to find a path that could lead you to a better life, right? Later down the line. And I'm not saying, you'll find a path down your life and you're going to be like, oh, now I'm going to be like a millionaire in like a year or something like that. No, I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that just take the next step forward, and guess what comes after that? Another step forward. And you just keep on going that, and there's going to come like different paths that you could take, and just keep on taking different paths and keep on taking different paths, right? Like life goes on, right? And I think this is a pretty cool thing that she's actually able to make this amount of money. So let's just say for her, right? If I was her and I just started to make like 50K a month, right? How would I manage that money? I would actually probably carry a lot of cash, right? Like in that specific scenario, because she's operating a business and also having to pay basically everything, out of her own pocket in a sense, right? Like she's not relying on someone paying her like a paycheck, right? I would be probably very, like personally, very conservative and like have like a year's worth of expenses just for like my own personal satisfaction, right? You only need like 3 to 6 months of like an emergency fund, right? But I like in her situation, it wouldn't actually take that long. I would prefer to have actually like a year long emergency fund just because I would also basically be combining the business emergency fund as well. Basically meaning like, oh, I could keep working on my business even if the business is slow, I still have access to this massive cash pile that I don't really got to worry about the next year. If something bad were to really happen, I could figure something out, right? And that's just a more personal preference, right? Due to the amount of money, like 50K a month, it'd be very quick, depending on her expenses, to literally have like a year worth of an emergency fund, right? Like it wouldn't really take her long. It would literally just probably take her a year or a month to get a year worth of an emergency fund, right? Depending on her expenses, right? So that's just something to think about. So I would just have like a massive emergency fund. I would start automating everything on top of that into basically the S&P 500. I probably wouldn't really focus too much on like real estate or anything like that. I'd probably just go super heavy in the S&P 500 and super heavy into growing the business because obviously that is the biggest cash flow potential that she has at this moment. So if I was her, I'd focus super hard on the business aspect for the monthly cash flow and then just try to funnel as much as I can into like the S&P 500. That's what I would personally do in her specific situation. If you want to learn how to get a debt, go to 40inbox.com.